Ready? Om Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagatguru. So we completed the Bhagavad, the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which was Bhakti Yoga. This chapter, the 13th Adhyaya or chapter, is known as Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga. So there are two aspects. If you read the Sankhya philosophy, there is a Purusha and a Prakriti. There are two. It's a dual system of thought where Prakriti is nature, the things that we see around us, the things which change the world around us. The ever-changing nature is known as Prakriti. And the Purusha is the consciousness behind Prakriti. That's the idea. So the nature of the universe is dual according to Sankhya, and yoga also follows the same theological framework. Yoga, Sankhya, and yoga, they are both systems of the six systems of Indian philosophy. There are two systems uh, which is known as Sankhya and yoga, and they follow the same principle. They are dualistic in nature. Whereas in Vedanta and the Purva Mimamsa, that is the Karma Kanda portion of the Vedas, which are the other two systems of philosophy, they have all the different, they are dualists, Dvaita Vedanta, there are qualified non-dualists, which is known as Vishishta Advaita, and there is Advaita philosophy, which does not believe in this distinction between Prakriti and Purusha. And the universe, according to them, is not dualistic. There's only one existence, appearing as many because of Maya. So, anyway, whatever be the philosophy, Gita is a synthetic approach to all these six systems. They discuss practically everything. And the genius of Krishna is that he has harmonized in the Mahabharata, he has harmonized all the systems of thought that existed during his time. That is to be noted here, that many of these principles were taken from Sankhya and adapted to Buddhistic theology. Buddha, that is why they say most of the yoga teachings, Sankhya Yoga, is the basic framework upon which the theology of Buddhism has been built. So now it's a disputed fact whether Sankhya Yoga came first or Buddhism came first. Buddhism is a very ancient religion. But obviously, mm, the Sankhya, as it is known, the Kapila Muni's Sankhya, is a much later development. Sankhya existed even before Kapila Muni, who systematized the Sankhya philosophy, just as Patanjali systematized yoga philosophy, which was existing even before Patanjali. So in Vedas, you will find everything. And Bhagavad Gita, being a Smriti Shastra, as opposed to the Shruti Shastra, which is Vedas. We have to make this uh, a distinction between Shruti and Smriti. Shruti are our scriptures, according to Swamiji. So all the Smritis which came after the Vedas were either revealed or composed. They never use the word composed because it's not some poetry or prose which some rishi has composed. They are revelations. They are super conscious revelations, or you may say super sensuous revelations, which occur in the purified mind of rishis. So any rishi, any person who practices spiritual discipline realizes certain truths and he articulates it in the language of that age. So that is what happened when the Vedas were being, uh, you cannot say written, the Vedas were composed, or you may say The revealed verses of the Vedas as they occur now are expressed in a language that was very common in those days. So the Sanskrit of the Vedic period does not tally exactly with the Sanskrit of Bhagavad Gita or the Puranic age and the Smriti age. Sanskrit language has evolved. It is only when Panini wrote a grammar, he decided that enough is enough, because if the language changes so fast, then you do not know what one generation thought about this. The concepts change, the meaning changes. So he decided to systematize grammar. That is why Vyakarana came. And he formulated the 4,000 sutras, which are known as Panini's Vyakarana Sutras, Panini's Sutra. So he was the one who decided that Sanskrit, and after that, Sanskrit language has not changed much. They follow very strictly the rules of Panini's grammar. So when we use the different words, Kshetra, Kshetrajna, Purusha, Prakriti, you have to remember that they're different terms which mean the same but are used in different ages. So that is why you will find it a bit surprising why Sri Krishna had to use, or Arjuna asks this question. uh, and Prakriti and Purusha have been used, but they are used more in Sankhya and Yoga systems. Whereas here, in Bhagavad Gita and also in the Mahabharata, Kshetra and Kshetrajna words are used, though they mean the same. So this chapter 13, which we are going to discuss now after Bhakti Yoga, and as I mentioned in the previous class, the first six chapters, if you divide the whole Gita into 18 chapters, first six chapters basically deal with the philosophy of Karma Yoga. This is according to Madhusudan Saraswati, because we find Sri Krishna is in a very strange situation. A very active person suddenly wants to renounce everything, give up the war, and retreat to the forest, and all those things. He's afraid of the terrible war that is going to ensue. Though he himself was prepared, he was very rajasic. Then Sri Krishna has to somehow convince him that he has to fight this war, that now there is no way out. He has to follow dharma, his swadharma. So, first six chapters, including the Dhyana Yoga, basically, broadly, they talk of the duties of a person, if practiced in the spirit of Karma Yoga, will lead to the second six chapters, the essence of the second six chapters, which is devotion to the personal God. Now, we do not directly come to the personal God. It is only in the 12th chapter that bhakti, or devotion to the personal God, is discussed. So, that is the culmination. So, chapter 7 onwards, you will find slowly Sri Krishna is shifting the focus from Karma Yoga to Bhakti Yoga. He's showing his glories. In the previous two chapters, we saw 11th, 10th, and 11th. The Vishwa Rupa Darshana, that is 11th, and before that, he Vibhuti Yoga. So, trying to see the same glory of the Lord in nature. The manifestation of Purusha, which is pure consciousness, in Prakriti, the marvels of Prakriti, one has to be very careful that Prakriti is something which can bind, but at the same time, as Shankaracharya says, Maya can bind, but Maya can also release. The Avidya Maya or the Vidya Maya can release you. So, using Prakriti, using Bhakti, though we know it is illusory or transitory Prakriti that we are encountering, because change is the nature of Prakriti. That is why it is also known as samsara. The word Sanskrit words are so beautiful. Sansara means sarati. Sarati means to move. That which keeps on moving, keeps on transforming, keeps on changing. The moment you try to catch it, it vanishes. It changes into something else. So samsara, though it is used in a very derogatory sense, we say, oh, he's a samsari. That doesn't mean any, it doesn't mean, according to the Sanskrit language, it doesn't have a derogatory meaning. One can be a sansari because anyone who is exposed to change any kind of transformation in life, and who is overwhelmed by change is a sansari. So there's nothing wrong in being a sansari in that sense, because that is the very nature of Prakriti. And till we get, you obtain the grace of Mahamaya or Prakriti herself, which is also compared to the Divine Mother in the Tantras. Now we are celebrating Navratri. It's another system of Indian thought, Tantras, which converted the same Kshetrajna and Kshetra. Kshetra is Prakriti, Prakriti and Purusha. Kshetrajna is Purusha. So this Prakriti has evolved different names of the same reality. We call it Shakti or Shiva and Shakti, Purusha and Prakriti, Kshetra and Kshetrajna. Kshetra is Prakriti, Kshetrajna and Kshetra. So Purusha is Kshetrajna, one who knows the Kshetra, one who is aware, one who is conscious of the Kshetra or Prakriti. So the system of Tantra also believes in the same thing, that we worship Prakriti and ask Prakriti to, though her nature is changing, we pray to her in as Divine Mother to help us get rid, attain to some kind of stability, which is nothing but spiritual practice. Spiritual practice is to focus on the Purusha or the God within, as they say, the buddhi or the pure consciousness within, so that we are not disturbed by Prakriti's transformations. That is the whole essence of spiritual sadhana, or spirituality means only that. The more we seek consciousness, the progressive reading of spirit or consciousness into matter is civilization, according to Swamiji, is spiritual civilization. So he says if somebody reads, is more material in the sense disturbed, always disturbed by Prakriti, then he is less spiritual. So all our sadhana is to focus on Kshetrajna or Purusha or Shiva or a personal God, whatever, Ishvara, all those different terms, they indicate the same thing in different systems of thought. That has to be made clear. So here now Arjuna will ask this question, though according to some versions of the Bhagavad Gita, the first verse is not there. In some versions, the first verse is not there, but in the popular version, it is there. So Arjuna is asking a question which is not there. In most of the Gita, some versions of Mahabharata, it begins with the second verse. The first verse is omitted, where Sri Krishna is asking Sri Krishna is asked a question by Arjuna. Prakrutim Arjuna Uvacha, that is Arjuna is asking, Prakrutim Purusham Chaiva. See, here he is using Prakriti and Purusha, not Kshetra and Kshetrajna. Prakrutim Purusham Cha Eva. Cha Eva means both of them. Kshetra Kshetrajna Meva Cha. So he's comparing, he knows the difference, not difference, he knows the similarity between these two terms. So they say Prakriti and Purusha, or Kshetra and Kshetrajna. Kshetra literally means field. So Kshetra means field. It means a field of operation. Kshetrajna means one who is the owner of the field, literally, or the knower of the field. Gna means to know. Jnana. Jnana word has come from Gna. So Kshetrajna means one who is aware or one who is conscious of the field. The field means the nature. Nature is the field where Purusha enacts its play or Ishvara enacts his play. And that play is part of Prakriti. So he wants to know what is Prakriti and Purusha. Also, what is Kshetra, the field, that is Prakriti, and Kshetrajna, which is Purusha. This I want to know. So he's asking a question. He's asking Sri Krishna, I want to know. They say, some people say Prakriti and Purusha, Kshetra and Kshetra. Can you explain to me? So now the third 6 chapters, beginning with this 13th chapter, according to Madhusudana Saraswati, it deals with the philosophy of Jnana Yoga. So first is Karma Yoga, first 6 chapters. Second 6 chapters culminated with Bhakti Yoga, the various aspects of Prakriti which lead to the concept of Ishvara, whom we worship as our Ishta or a personal God. So after having described that, Arjuna now wants to know the philosophy behind this whole creation, God. See, these are the three things which Sri Ramakrishna says in the gospel we need to understand. Who are you? Who am I? I means God. And what is the relationship between us? So these are the things which are covered here. So there is somebody who knows Prakriti or knows Kshetra, the field. He is the Kshetrajna. And what is the relationship between the Kshetrajna and the Kshetra? These are the essential questions which will be answered by Sri Krishna uh, so that Arjuna's curiosity is satisfied. So he says, "O Keshava, I desire to learn. I desire to learn. Jnanam gneyam cha Keshava. Etat vedutam ichchami." Now, Prakriti and Purusha, Kshetra and Kshetrajna, and Jnana and Gneya. So these are the different aspects he wants to know. Jnana means the knowledge of certain things, and the one who knows is a Gneya, which ought to be known. Gneyam, that which ought to be known, and what is that knowledge. So how do we establish a connection between what is to be known and what is known, what is to be known, what ought to be known and what is known. So anyway, that is his question. So Bhagwan will answer now, Sri Krishna will answer. He gives, he describes the difference between Kshetra and Kshetrajna, Prakriti and Purusha, and what does it mean to us in our lives. And that for that we use this commentary on the Gita by Swami Bhavananda, who now and then so nicely has introduced the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna as they appear in the gospel, so that the things become more clear. The same message is given by different prophets and avatars, but in different language. But here, the advantage of this commentary is apart from the meaning and some explanations, we have the quote from the gospel. Almost every verse has a footnote where there is a quote from the gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, where Sri Ramakrishna explains the same thing in his very simple and easily understandable way. So Bhagavan will now say, he starts with a very simple analogy. He says, Idam shariram kaunteya, kshetram ityam abhidiyate, iti abhidiyate, etad yo veti tam prahu kshetrajna iti tadvida. Now he starts with a very fundamental thing, which is very much obvious to all of us. He says, Acha, you want to know about Kshetra and Kshetrajna? Okay, this body is the Kshetra. Idam Shariram. Kaunteya. Kaunteya means the son of Kunti. So that is another name of Arjuna. So he says, this body is like a Kshetra and is abhidiyate, means is called. The kshetra, with respect to our personality or our human existence, the body or the Annamaya kosha with all the pranas and all, it is known as kshetra because this is the field. Through this body, we have to, the Purusha manifests itself. It's a very important point. That is why they say this body is such a valuable thing. Use it for the right purpose because it is not possible to achieve once this physical kshetra is not there, the kshetrajna cannot make any progress. So all spiritual progress is possible only when the kshetra, that body is there. That is why the embodied being, to get a human body especially, is extolled in the Vivek Chudamani. Shankaracharya says three things are very, very rare in this world. First is you have got a human body. Of course, among all the creations, the human body is the best of creations. That you have obtained. That is one great thing. The three things are rare. First, among all the species, millions of species, insects, viruses, plants, the created beings, human being, to get a human body is very rare. That is the first rare thing which is very, very rare. So, Shankaracharya's main idea is don't waste this human body. So, he says one is so Shariratvam, that is getting a body. That is why Krishna starts with this. Body is the kshetra, field or prakriti for us, for the individual. And then he says, second is uh, mumukshutvam, the desire to be free. So only in the body, the spirit understands the pain of bondage. See, this is very important. Why mukti is necessary? Unless there is pain, if the body was always healthy, never became old, whether it is Buddha's case, also the same thing. When he saw a child, he had never seen an old person or a sick person and a dead person. All these three things he was not exposed to. He was given the best of childhood, all training. His father did not want him to see misery. But how long could you stop him from seeing? The moment he saw these things, then he understood, oh my God, these things will come to me as well. That is when you realize that something has to be done if I have not, if I should not be bound to the world like this. Everything, every time he saw these three things, he first saw it and then he contemplated on this thing. That is why he became Buddha. He wanted to find a solution. He said, if this Kshetra is going to die or that is going to perish, then what am I living for? What is the goal of life? So second goal comes mumukshutva. So one is manushyatvam, that is getting a human body. After having got that, the second rare thing is the desire to free oneself, which is possible only when one has the body. The reason being, when you have the body, you know its transformatory nature. When you are in a subtle body, according to the Shastras, we cannot do sadhana. We may stay in a state of abeyance for a long time till we get another body to work out our karma. That is why the spirits, they just hanker, they just wait and wait and wait. That's why we have to perform shraddha for people who have passed away just to appease them. Mentally, they are not going to eat that food directly, but they mentally get satisfied that I am, even if I have died, my people are still remembering me. That is one satisfaction they get. But most of these spirits are waiting for a proper body that will also depend on karma to again come back and correct whatever mistakes they have made so that they can progress, they can evolve, and they can get mukti. So manushyatvam is not enough. According to Shankaracharya, mumukshatvam. So that is to be free while one is still in the body. So that is the only chance when you can work out the karma and become a Jivan Mukta according to Vedanta. So you have to wait till you get another body. And as I said, if you see some of the Puranas which deal with the life after death, Garuda Purana and all those things, many people may say that whether it is scientific or not. But anyway, if we believe what they say is true, the time scale changes drastically. So we may think we have died only a few years ago. I mean, the people who are living here, for them, a person who has died has given up the physical body and he is in the subtle body. The period may be 1 year. Oh, 1 year ago. It seems a very long time for us, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. But the time scale is 100 times almost. So one day of the Pitris or the departed spirits is equivalent to 1 year of the living. So the time scale changes drastically because there are no physical body. So you are not in a hurry. The moment we get a physical body, we seem to be in a hurry to do something, achieve something. We know we have 100 years left or maybe 50 years. So within this, I have this to do, that to do. All this, we speed up the whole process. So we have many things to do. Whereas for them, they have nothing to achieve because they are powerless without the body. That's why they say Shraddha is done only once in a year. It's like the soul, almost I mean, soul in the sense the mind, the subtle body wakes up after, say, 1 year and things, 1 year has passed, but for them it is just one day and one night. So it may take a very long time to get another body. Say 30, 40 years is nothing for them. 30, 40 nights, 30, 40 days. They still may have the feeling that it's just 30 days because the time scale, the time is such a relative concept. So that is why this Sharira, as Shankaracharya said, first of all, it is so rare. So whatever little life you have got, use it properly. And if you have mumukshutvam, that is still rare. You may get a sharir, but you may not use it for the proper purpose. So mumukshutvam is also necessary. Even after that, you may have a great desire to be free because of your past karma or seeing suffering all the time. You perhaps may feel that it's good to get rid of this suffering. Not through suicide, because that's not going to solve the problem. You have to be born again. But before you just feel that I have whatever, that when mumukshutvam comes, there is a desire in that spiritual aspirant to be free from this changing things and getting suffering because of this change, which anyway is not going to last long. Maybe the 100 years is the maximum we can aspire for. So within these 100 years, the soul, the Jivatma is in a hurry to be free, be Jivan Mukta while one is alive. So that is the second desire. Manushyatvam, Mumukshutvam. And then Shankaracharya says, if you have these two, you are very lucky, but still, you still need more luck, or it's more rare to get Mahapurusha Sanshraya, to get the guidance of a great spirit, a holy spirit. Mahapurusha means a person who will show you the way out of suffering. So that is what Buddha went out in search for. He wanted to. He knew this is this transitory world. He was already married and had a child, so he was middle age almost. He was young, though he was young, but he knew time is not on his side. It's too late. He has discovered that something has to be done. So immediately leaves the palace, even leaves the small child, and then goes to the forest in search of Mahapurusha Sanshara. He goes to Sankhya teachers. Now there is a description that most of the teachers whom he came in touch, some were ritualists, which he did not like. They were doing animal sacrifices and all those things, having misunderstood the karma kanda of the Vedas. But there were some who were knowledgeable, they were Sankhya teachers, but even that knowledge he found insufficient. So he said, let me realize what the goal of life is, why these sufferings come. Then he gets his own answers and then he finds out the way to nirvana and he preaches it as his philosophy. So also in Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna first starts, the literal meaning of Kshetra is, literal meaning is field. In a common Sanskrit, it is field, Kshetra. This is my Kshetra, means my area, my field. That is uh, Kurukshetra, the Kshetra of Kurus, that is Kurukshetra. So literal meaning is that area, my area, but it also means another thing, which the other meaning, which is more relevant in this context, is that which is protected from from perishing. That means you have a piece of land which you think will not perish. Obviously, for compared to other things which perish very quickly, the land is something which stays, it remains as your asset for a long time. That's why people invest in real estate, because that is less perishable. Not that it is money, everything is perishable, gold also is perishable, but the things that are less perishable have more value. So the body of beings is called kshetra because it has some kind of imperishability about it, at least till it lives. Other things are very prone to change. Plants will die within a few seconds, animals also, dogs will live for 14 years, but human body compared to other species, and of course with the exception of elephants and tortoises, which live for more than human 100 years, it is more or less, for practical purposes, it is imperishable. So that is one meaning of kshetra, not imperishable in the sense of the spirit. Spirit will never perish. It is one thing which is constant. But it is saved from destruction as compared to other beings. That is the idea. The Kshetra, of course, means also the field. Field, as I said, that's another meaning, and it provides an opportunity. What does a field do? By itself, field has no value. But if you grow corn or some wheat or rice, we sow some seeds. That is, you sow the seed of sadhana. You that is why uh, there is a beautiful song in Bangla, Monore Krishi Kaj Janona. Thakur used to sing it a lot. Oh my mind, you do not know the profession of farming. Krishi Kaj. Krishi means kshetra. It has come from Krishi means farming. You don't know how to farm. You have to sow the beej of the Guru given mantra, that is bija. That is why that is also known as bija. And cherish it within your heart so that it fructifies and it gives a nice crop. But for that, you have to sow. Field may be good, but unless you make use of that field and remove all the weeds, which are the bad habits or bad thoughts, you have to weed it and allow the corn to grow or the wheat to grow. So that is why Kshetra is also, it really literally the meaning that it is a field is also very good, because that this is the field where we can reap, sow and reap. Karma is cause and effect. As you sow, so you reap. That's what Bible says. As you sow, if you sow good seeds, you'll get a good crop. So this is the fruits of our good and bad karma we are reaping in this field. So that is why body is very important. Kshetra is very important. So it is known as a that is why they say Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre, the first verse. Kurukshetra is a physical field where the battle took place. But it is also Dharma Kshetra because Dharma is being practiced here. Arjuna is fighting on the side of Dharma. That is why Krishna is helping him. He is his Sarathi, guiding him. So it's not just a Kurukshetra, it is Dharma Kshetra. So Dharma Kshetra comes first. So for the Jivatma, for all souls, the Kshetrajna, Kshetra is a Dharma Kshetra. Kshetrajna is the soul and Kshetra is the Dharma Kshetra. So Kurukshetra is the physical Kshetra, belonging to Kuru. Some property belonging to you is your Kshetra. This is my area, my field, my property. We can say that. But Dharma Kshetra is the body that you have inherited. It is also known as Dharma Kshetra, because it is here that all the actions that we do, all the karma that we do, will fructify into the crop. So without a body, there is no karma. That is why there were some spiritual souls. You remember there was an incident where in Banaras or Vrindavan, I'm not very sure. I think it is Vrindavan. So Swami Akhandananji was doing meditation under a banyan tree at night. He used to meditate. Suddenly he saw some spirits. Of course, if you raise your level to that subtle plane, you can communicate with the spirits. So it's possible even Swamiji saw it in Chennai. So they were literally, because they had very good karma. So they were sadhakas and they were preferring to live in Vrindavan. But still, they had a great desire to get a body again and continue their sadhana, and the little mukti was they had to do little karma to get that mukti. So they approached in a subtle way. Akhandananji writes that they were begging of him. He said, "See, very little karma is left. Why don't you do it?" Because he had a physical body. Just pray. Praying is also working out our karma. Every prayer that we do, every japa that we do. So why don't you pray for us? Because you have a physical body. And then Akhandanji was very compassionate. He prayed and then they disappeared. That means they might have very little was remaining, some mukti. But because of their good karma, they came in touch with Akhandan. So, but in any case, they had to use somebody's physical body. That in this case, it is Akhandan who had to pray in this physical body, which is known as Dharma Kshetra, to get liberation. In the spiritual body, there is no liberation. So that is why this body is so important. Manushatvam, Mumukshutvam, Mahapurusha, Sanshraya. The grace and support of a great soul who transmits that spiritual knowledge to you, gives you the mantra so that you can use that to become free. So there is an intelligent principle which resides in this body that is known as Kshetrajna. The intelligent principle means conscious principle, which resides in the body, but it doesn't just reside. They are not separate entities. They are inextricably linked with each other. That is why Shankaracharya in his Brahma Sutra Bhashya, he says, when he describes this world, he says it's a mixture of uh, Purusha and Prakriti, a strange mixture of consciousness and Jada, Chit Jada. Chit means conscious principle. So conscious principle somehow gets mixed with the Jada, that is the unconscious principle or Prakriti, and gives Prakriti, gives everyone a feeling that it is alive and conscious. There may be a body, but if that conscious principle is no longer in connection, the body becomes a dead body. That consciousness goes away. So the intelligent principle, it not only resides, it is inextricably connected with the kshetra, but at the same time it recognizes, it governs it. It makes the physical body do action, do certain karma, whether good or bad karma, and depending on that, we attain realization, whatever realization we want. Sri Krishna gives a beautiful example now for this verse. What is the difference between kshetra and kshetrajna? Now, this is in Sanskrit, you can explain using field and all, but Sri Krishna comes to a item from the kitchen. Even housewives will understand what Kshetra and Kshetrajna is. That is the beauty of the gospel, Sri Krishna. He says, human body can be compared to a pot. You see how Sri Krishna, simple example which we do every day, we use pots, we use the kitchen, we use boil vegetables. He says the mind, intellect, this is Thakur's original. I don't think he has, many times he would quote from the scriptures, but he was honest enough to attribute the source, or he used to say, Totapuri used to say in Vedanta it is like this, in Vedas it is like this, in Bhagavatam it is like this. But this example is Sri Ramakrishna's own. By his keen observation, he must have seen how, and he was always thinking to correlate. For him, cooking was not just cooking. For him, Prakriti was alive. Every minute, nature was teaching him something new. That is why Swami Vivekananda said, we felt foolish when we came. We were like pygmies, intellectual pygmies when we came, spiritual pygmies when we came to Sri Ramakrishna. Because all his knowledge was original, where we pride ourselves, we have that we have a degree and all those things, but it was borrowed knowledge, second-hand knowledge taken from books, somebody uh, from several scholars who have written these books. We memorized it, appeared for exams, got a degree, and thought we are knowledgeable. But that is all second-hand knowledge. Whereas Sri Krishna, every day for him, Prakriti was the teacher. She taught lessons directly without any university, college, school. That is why it discarded formal learning. That is what Swamiji says. And he says, we felt foolish because intricate problems, we used to refer to books, what this philosopher has said, what Kapila Muni has said, what Patanjali says. We had to refer to second-hand knowledge. Whereas here, he got all this knowledge directly from Prakriti, the University of Prakriti. So he says the mind, intellect, and the senses can be compared. See, he is comparing the whole philosophy of existence, which Sankhya, Yoga, and everybody claims to explain. He is explaining using the day-to-day items which are available in the kitchen. The mind, intellect, and the senses. First, the human body is like a pot. Now, the mind, intellect, man, buddhi, and the indriyas can be compared to water, rice, and potato. So maybe some khichdi was going on. So water, rice, and potato was placed in that pot, which is on a hearth, that is on a, it was some fire was there below. Those days they used to have these earthen uh, ovens, and fire wooden pieces would be there, which, and they used to cook there. So while the pot gets heated, the water boils the rice and potato. The contents then become too hot to be handled. This heat, however, belongs to the fire and not to the pot and its contents. So, though the conscious principle is like the fire, you see how nicely explains how consciousness creates, animates the whole jada prakriti. Jada means inert prakriti. Otherwise, you have the pot, you have potato, you have water, you have everything, rice, but it will not be cooked. We need rice to cook it. That is why the heat, however, belongs to the fire. But we think the potato is hot. Of course, that heat has been transmitted, but the original heat belonged to the fire. It the original heat, you remove the fire, he says, the whole thing becomes cold. It will no longer cook. Similarly, it is the Shakti of Brahman that enlivens the body, mind, intellect, and the senses. So, Brahman and Shakti, they are not separate. Though some of the philosophies try to separate them, but Sri Ramakrishna says they cannot be separated. Of course, Advaita also says they cannot be separated. Shankaracharya says by strange phenomena, he just says it is strange. Is it not strange that the conscious and the unconscious things get mixed up and get a feeling of consciousness? He calls it a strange principle. He calls it Maya, but here Sri Ramakrishna is more practical. He says it is Shakti of Brahman. So Shakti of Brahman is Maya of Vedanta. So it is the Shakti which according to Shankaracharya is Maya and makes things appear to move. He will never say it moves. He will say it appears to move. Brahman never moves because he was more interested in consciousness. He was not interested in the most moving things. He said if you get involved in the moving things, transformatory things, I mean, in brief, if you get involved in the world, thinking it to be real, you will be caught in the world. So his idea was, since life is short, that is why he wrote Vivek Chudamani, don't waste time uh, dealing with this Shakti and all. But Thakur is more practical. He knows we can't give up Shakti. We have to live in this world. We have to do everything that we were doing, and just we cannot renounce everything. Whereas Shankaracharya was more direct. In Advaita, he says that is Maya, you just don't get involved. If you want to solve the problem, you side with Brahman. Shakti is not, but whereas for Thakur, Shakti is equally important. In fact, they say India became very impractical because it ignored Shakti. Swamiji says this. That is why he wanted to reintroduce Durga Puja and all this Shakti worship because he thought that people have misunderstood, and in the name of Maya they just thought Brahman alone is real, so why should we bother? They became very insensitive to the world and its problems. So he wanted a balance. Sri Ramakrishna gave that balance. He said it is Shakti. It is true for us as long as it does not take you away. Using that same Shakti, Vidya Maya, you get rid and become one with Brahman. So that is Sri Ramakrishna's method. Now, the question will come, Kshetra and Kshetragna for me. Now, Sri Krishna has said that in my personality, my Kshetra is my body, and the Indriya and Orga, the conscious principle, the one who observes that, and that is the Kshetragna. The principle that cognizes and governs the body is the Kshetragna. That is as far as me, my personality is concerned. But what about, so that means there are countless kshetras and kshetrajna. So that doubt will come. What about somebody else? What about the plants? What about animals? So what is the kshetra and kshetrajna? It's not just my body that is a kshetra. What about the other bodies and what about other materials? So Krishna anticipates that. And before Arjuna can ask him, he is answering it. क्षेत्रज्ञं च अपि मां विद्धि सर्वक्षेत्रेषु भारत क्षेत्रज्ञयोर्ज्ञानं यत्तद् ज्ञानं matam mama. Means he says kshetrajnam, the knower of the field, that is the conscious principle within me. Cha api mam me vidhi, know, also know that ma means me, the the thing that which is inside us, which we call me, mine, aham, that is that thing. Sarva kshetra, it is there in everything. Even an animal feels that this is the kshetra, this is the kshetra. Just to rule out that it's not only human beings or one particular being that should think like that, it is all pervasive. The kshetrajnayo of the field and the knower of the field, knowledge, that knowledge, that universal knowledge you should have. That is my, the knowledge of kshetra and kshetrajna, if you have, that is true knowledge. That is the only knowledge that you need to have in this world. If you know that distinction, then your life will be uh, not full of suffering. So, Prakriti and Purusha, now Sri Ramakrishna will explain it in a different way. Prakriti and Purusha are called Kshetra and Kshetrajna, that we understood. Non-self and the self. The former, that is Prakriti, is insentient. That is something surprising, which scientists will say, how can it be? The whole Prakriti is full of uh, active, there is an active principle there. Yet that is because of the Kshetrajna. If you see the human body, when the power is withdrawn, the prana goes away, the body becomes dead, lifeless. So also it is insentient, but it is the Purusha that gives it sentience. The latter is sentient. Purusha identifies with the Prakriti, and then we say Ma. Then he says I come. I comes, the ego comes as the product of the mixing of Purusha and Prakriti. When you say my body, it means my consciousness mixed with my body, which is as good as a dead body, but because it is mixed and it is living, I say it is mine. So it fancies all the characteristics that are his own. Then there is an example which Vedanta gives, Shankaracharya gives, to explain how this happens. It's like color of a flower. Suppose the crystal, there is a crystal here, and there is a flower, and you watch the, because of the proximity, it reflects some of the color of the rose flower, the pink color or whichever rose color we have. That color is reflected in the crystal. The transparent crystal appears. So that is the example which Shankaracharya and Advaitins will give. Don't take this world to be real. It is appearing to be changing, appearing to be fearful. But once you realize the Purusha, then all this fear, all this bondage, all this fear of the unknown, fear of losing something, fear of losing the body, fear of death, all these things will vanish because you know for certain that the color of the flower is not the color of the crystal. They appear to be pink or green or blue or whatever it is, whatever be the color of the flower. So the Jivatma, the soul, individual soul, identifies himself through ego with the body. And he says, it is my body, my ego, my property, me, ma, aham, and mama. That is very, it's the only philosophy in this world that Hindu philosophy says, just ego word is used in Western philosophy. We don't say, but here ego is defined as in two ways. One is aham and mama, aham, mama. So every time we refer to the individuality, the ignorance which Shankaracharya or the Advaitins speak of, they will always say aham, mama. They will never say aham only. Because ego cannot stand by itself. Ego is with respect to something you possess. Now you don't say I. You when you say I, what do you mean? You don't mean your body. You say my body, mama, mama sharira. So aham and mama cannot be separated. So when aham comes, the first thing that manifests is Purusha when it mixes with Prakriti. First aham comes. Then the child, for example, the child. It takes a lot of time for the child to, you have to tell this is your hand, this is your body, this is your, it will be born, but it will be having aham, but not mama. Then you will tell the child, this is your shirt, this is your toy, don't give it to others. Then slowly mamatva increases. So it's not that ego is always evolving into aham, which is inborn, because that aham is cannot be removed. That aham is the supreme identification with the supreme self, jivatma. That is not bad. When mamatva is added, then ego becomes dangerous because he identifies everything which is he is surrounded with, and then when he loses that, he feels sad that this is my toy and somebody else takes it away. So that mamatva is hurt. So aham mama is always comes together. So one who identifies with Prakriti, first by saying this is my body, mama sharira, mama house or a tree or my property, then the mamatva's range increases. So then he gets more and more entrenched in the Prakriti. He forgets his Purusha nature. If it aham alone were there, that is why they say, I read a wonderful book, it is so easy to be happy by giving up this mamatva. Aham is not bad. So those people who like to live alone, they are happy with themselves. They don't need mama to make them happy. Of course, it doesn't never makes you happy. In fact, it makes you unhappy because you fear losing what you don't have or what you have. But aham will never lose. That is why people who are happy to be alone, people who enjoy the company of their own self, so I heard one speaker saying that why are you afraid of solitude? Because you don't like your own company. You don't like your own company because there's some things in you which you hate, which you don't want. Your self is very happy when it is left alone. But unfortunately, the mamatva, there's so many things which have come along with the ego, and that is difficult to get rid of. So it is not aham aham in fact is very much necessary because aham brahmasmi. Aham is there. How can you, so Shankaracharya says, how can you get rid of aham? Because you cannot get rid of yourself. Only when you think that these things are mine, more and more things of Prakriti are surround you, and you think everything is your own, then you all the problems start. The fear of losing it, the fear of uh, not gaining more, the greed, everything comes because of mamatva, not because of aham. So Prakriti, the variation, and Prakriti doesn't help us in this unless we pray to Prakriti. That's why they say Divine Mother can be very deceptive. So you have to pray that don't show your deceptive powers to me, show your better powers which will release me. So Prakriti is infinite and its tendency is to divide. It will create more and more variations, more and more variety, so that it can take you away from the center, take you away from the self, and more things get added to you. That is how Prakriti handles, Prakriti creates that illusion. And the reason, the differentiation that you see in Prakriti is infinite. We see only a small portion. That is why Arjuna got confused when Krishna showed him the Vishwarupa. First he showed him his nice aspect, with mace and a very powerful Vishwarupa he showed. Then he showed his terrible roop, which is also his own form. There's so much of variation. He is seeing all his enemies crushed, and Krishna is eating through thousands of mouths, through which the tongue is like a fire, and people are just entering that and getting burnt and destroyed. Then Arjuna is afraid. He said, "Oh, I didn't know you had this aspect also." So he says, "Now you please withdraw." So this variation, because it is infinite, it overwhelms a person. In the beginning, he may not be overwhelmed. He may think, oh, I am gathering these things. But then he still finds that he has many things to achieve. Even a billionaire will think that he's poor when he comes across a multi-billionaire. So all these things, that infinite variety of Prakriti, which is overwhelming. So the jiva gets overwhelmed and then it traces its root back. It says now enough is enough. The Vishwarupa, the very reason Sri Krishna was showing his Vishwarupa to Arjuna is to tell that you think your problem is serious, a little problem, and you got nervous and you stopped fighting. You think your problem is serious, but see, this is the whole creation. And this is how things come to birth, and this is how things are destroyed. And that Vishwarupa was enough. And he immediately says, no, 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 please take back your uh, simple form which you had before. I don't want to see all these things, because he could not face the terrible part. So that is why Prakriti, being infinite in nature, uh, there is no solution through Prakriti. It is by taking the reverse path. As I said, the Purusha or the pure consciousness has got inextricably linked with this Prakriti. So it is only by rare chance or rare fortune, good fortune, as Shankaracharya says, you get a human body where you can detach yourself. Without the body, I repeat very clearly, that's why he starts the Kshetrajna, saying this body is the Kshetra. So it is not a thing to be trifled with. It is only in the body that one can do sadhana and move forward. Without the kshetra, there is no question of sowing something so that you can't reap, and there's no cause and effect. And then you stay in that state, subtle state, till you get a body to complete the whole process. So this, but who guides this? This is a very important, this all kshetras and kshetrajnas. My body is the kshetra, and the knower of my body and the things that are around me, aham and mama, all these things that I have gathered around me, constitute my universe. My universe, in the sense, my limited existence and limited universe. So, what about the others? How are they related to me? This is a very important question, because Vedanta says you cannot solve any problem at your own individual level. Even though you may like to go, you may, some people want to isolate themselves, but then it is like ostrich putting its head in the sand and thinking it is not chased by uh, some wild animal. That is what the ostrich does. It runs very fast in the desert, and then it sees the enemy, but then when at a certain stage when it is too exhausted, it just puts its head inside, thinking that I can't see the problem, so the problem doesn't exist. But it doesn't realize the animal will catch up and then kill it. So also, Sri Krishna is now telling Arjuna that only knowing about the kshetra and kshetrajna at the individual level, microcosm, will not help. Macrocosmic level, the same kshetrajna combined, your kshetrajna, that is the individual consciousness of one jivatma and all the jivatmas, combined together, they are known as the Ishvara, the cosmic intelligence. While he appears that Ishvara also, the Ishvara is a concept which Vedanta has introduced. So here he says, though it has all the characteristics, Ishvara is also known as Sarva Guna Sampanna. He has all the qualities that we human beings have limitations, but he doesn't have. So he is, though he is imbued with all the characteristics of Prakriti, he is actually untouched by it. So Krishna again and again tells Arjuna that you see, in fact he never took part in the war. Though he was the central figure, he was practically present everywhere. But he was detached. As I mentioned on the Janmashtami day, Sri Krishna's whole life is his message. Right from childhood, he was not touched by anything of the things around him, neither by his parents, whom he had to leave. Unfortunately, they were in jail, and he was born there in the prison, and he came out. He stayed with foster parents. He was not even attached to them. Then he goes to Vrindavan. The gopis love him more than they loved. He was just 10-year-old at that time, and they loved him so much. But he never got attached. He just moved on and never visited Mathura and Vrindavan again in his life. Goes to Dwaraka, then he helps, though he doesn't sit on the throne. He does everything, but he keeps on moving. He is untouched by it. That is the beauty. When you define an incarnation or a avatara, who is a manifestation of Ishvara in the physical body, he says that person or that avatara is having all the characteristics. Otherwise, how did he show the Vishwarup and all the different aspects of a personal God? Sri Krishna was showing everything to Arjuna and he was overwhelmed because he could not tolerate it. Though he showed all the characteristics, some of the sample characteristics, not the all. If he had shown all, it would have been too overwhelming for Arjuna. But anyway, he says that this Kshetrajna, the cosmic Kshetrajna, the cosmic consciousness, appears to be touched or appeared to be imbued with the characteristics of the Prakriti, just as a red colored flower, when it reflects in the crystal, it appears to be red. The crystal appears to be red, whereas it is not red. Actually, it is not red. But the reflection, just like that, though Ishvara is imbued with the characteristics of Prakriti or Shakti, if you consider it to be Shiva and then Shakti, these are all similar terms. He is untouched by it, and in fact, he is the innermost self of all beings. His aham is expanded so much that he can feel the individuality in all beings. The individual souls are part of that Ishvara. That is how Vedanta defines Ishvara. He is sum total of all the individual souls, so that the confusion doesn't arise here. Arjuna should not think that my Kshetrajna, the Kshetrajna of my body or my individuality is one Jivatma, there is another Jivatma, then how are they connected? He says Ishvara is the sum total of all the Jivatmas, just as the sum total of all the bodies is given a technical name known as Virat. Virat is the universal, sum total of all the gross things in the universe is known as Virat. When you go to the subtle level, it becomes Ishvara. And when you go to the most subtle or the uh, when you go to that level of consciousness, it is known as Prajna or Brahman. So, as consciousness, there is absolutely no division. But when it becomes subtle, when it gets mixed with Prakriti, all the Jivatmas appear to be separate. Arjuna appears to be separate, then Krishna. Though Krishna knows he is the innermost soul of all because of his realization, his proximity with the Prajna or the universal cosmic soul, he exists as the innermost self. That's why he says, Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Hriddesha Arjuna Tishtati. That is why we meditate in the heart. So that is the meeting point of all the jivas, of the Ishvara, who is controlling us just as we control the body. It is the universal aspect of Ishvara that is controlling the Virat, the universal aspect of the universe as we see it. All the law of karma, all the things that are happening, cause and effect, they're all taking part in the Virat aspect. But the individual souls, though they think they are independent, they are individual, and we make such a big fuss about our individuality, how I feel, how I should be treated by others. No matter how much we brag about that, we are still part of that Ishvara. So he says, you don't have any, as a Kshetrajna, the Kshetrajna inside Arjuna, the physical body of Kshetra, that is Arjuna, has no independent existence. Don't think you are independent. You are part of the cosmic body, the cosmic consciousness. So he is known as Kshetrajna in all the Kshetras. All the Kshetras around him, whether it is animate, inanimate, living, non-living, animals, every plants, everywhere is the Kshetrajna. He is eternally pure, free, and blissful. So the goal of spiritual life, according to Vedanta, is the jnana, the ultimate jnana, is knowledge of this true understanding of Kshetra and Kshetrajna. So we, as I said, Madhusudan Saraswati says, this is the chapter 13 onwards, we start Jnana Yoga. First was Karma Yoga, first 6 chapters. Second was Bhakti Yoga, which culminated with 12 chapter. 13th chapter is Jnana Yoga, which is giving the understanding. He says, till you understand the difference and don't mix up Kshetra and Kshetrajna, Purusha and Prakriti, if you don't mix, till then you don't have knowledge. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say when Master Masha came and he he complained that his wife was not educated, that means she didn't go to college or school. So she said she is fine. When he asked, how is your wife? He said, oh, she is ignorant. And then Sri Ramakrishna scolds him. He said, and are you a man of knowledge? What do you understand by knowledge? When he said knowledge, he means, as in the words of Krishna, one who understands both Kshetragna and Kshetragna, knows the distinction between the two and does not get caught in the Kshetra thinking through that unique phenomena of aham and mama. Mama means mine. By itself, as I said, is not bad. The universal soul, if you say my soul or my consciousness, I meditate on the universal consciousness within. It's the essence of all the mantras, Gayatri. I meditate on the universal consciousness, of which my individual limited consciousness, with all my ego and all the limitations, are part of. I meditate on that so that uh, I feel myself as eternally free, eternally pure, and eternally blissful. So this is known as apara vidya, the higher knowledge, as compared to the lower knowledge of secular sciences. So the knowledge pertaining to Kshetra, the wonderful discoveries that we made within the boundaries of Prakriti, nature, going into the mysteries of nature, making wonderful discoveries, they still classify it as lower knowledge, aparavidya. And paravidya, that is higher knowledge, is the knowledge of the distinction between the two. So according to Sri Ramakrishna, he was very keen that a spiritual person should focus more on paravidya, having known whatever is to be known in the apara field. Of lower knowledge is necessary for survival, but survival in the physical body. But beyond that, the real knowledge is the paravidya. So Sri Ramakrishna, there are many incidents which are given, but I'll just quote this beautiful incident because, as I said, for every Gita verse, uh, there's a beautiful verse from the gospel. In the next class, we'll discuss the other examples. But here we'll conclude with Sri Ramakrishna's example. He says, one is not, see how he comes and explains things not in a philosophical way, but very simple, just as he explained how consciousness animates a pot, which is the body, and the rice, and the water, and the vegetable, and the potatoes inside that, how they burn. The fire does not belong to the pot, but the moment you remove the fire, the pot gets cold. So similarly, he is giving another example to show the distinction between Kshetra and Kshetragna. He says one is not termed rich by one's merely owning money. There are signs of one's being rich. Now, this is a crude example, but it conveys the point. His house would be well lit in all the rooms, whereas a poor man cannot afford to have many lights. So the human body is comparing this. Said when you see a house full of light, people are not stingy, they don't switch off, they don't have any issues. A rich man will normally keep his house lighted. That is a sign of affluence. Similarly, he says, your human body is the tabernacle of the Lord. It is the Lord who exists in the heart. It should not be kept in the darkness of ignorance. So it would not do. You should have knowledge, the knowledge of Kshetra and Kshetragna, Purusha and Prakriti distinction. It should be lit with the lamp of Buddhi or wisdom. When you illumine your heart with this lamp, you will behold the benign Lord there. Jnana can be gained by one and all. There are in the human temple two entities, the little Jivatma and the great Paramatma. That's the simile of the two birds, which we'll discuss some other day. Mundakopanishad said there are two birds. One is eating fruits, the other is just watching. So something similar to that. But he says there are two entities in the human heart with the what we call as I. One is the Jivatma, the little Jivatma with the little ego, and the great Paramatma. The former is dependent on the latter. That means Jivatma is dependent on Paramatma, not the other way around. As the electricity from the same source illumines all the houses, the Paramatma gives light to all the Jivatmas. The divine knowledge illumines your body, yourself, and the Paramatma in you all at once. It's not that there are different Parama. There's one Lord, one intelligent principle which we call as Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. So when you come at the level of Buddhi, all the individual buddhis they come together. It's like light. When you see all the rooms of a palatial building where a rich man resides, full of light, it's not dark. The darkness of ignorance is gone. So we have to illumine our personality, the Jivatma, then the light of Paramatman will shine, and you see that all are connected, and you experience that universal oneness, or that is the you realize that the Kshetrajna, though it appears as many in different animals, human beings, the Kshetrajna is one, and the Kshetra also put together. So to remove the confusion that this should not be meditated at the individual level but at a universal level, we conclude this second verse. We'll begin from in the next alternate Saturday uh, Gita class. We'll continue from where we have left. Are there any questions? Any question in there? And I have 5 minutes more.
Comparing Tantra and Vedanta, you were saying Prakriti and Purush and
Correlation,
Shakti,
yeah.
Hmm. So what's Ramakrishna's philosophy? Is it in the middle?
No, Krishna is a synthetic philosophy. Bhagavad Gita, the question that is being asked here is, we compared Tantra with Vedanta, that is, or Sankhya, to be more precise. Vedanta, of course, accepts Sankhya philosophy, where Purusha and Prakriti are compared to Brahman and Maya in Vedanta, and Shiva and Shakti, as Shiva is the conscious principle, Shakti in Tantras. So the question is, where does Gita come in? Gita, as I said, the philosophy of Gita, as Swami Vivekananda said, Sri Krishna and all the great incarnations, they come in different ages. Even Sri Krishna himself says, Sambhavami yuge yuge, yada yada I dharmasya. Dharma doesn't mean just fighting between adharma and dharma, uh, fight between that. It's an internal fight when people misunderstand philosophical things. Also, he has to come. So he comes to explain in the language of that particular day or that particular age the truths, to re-establish that dharmasya, yada yada dharmasya, glanir bhavatu bharata, abhyuthana, to raise it to. So his job was not to establish one particular philosophy. Acharyas, of course, are different. If Ramanuja comes, comes to establish one particular philosophy. With all the smaller sects, that is why the sign of an incarnation is he should be universal. If he is whatever be, if he is fanatic in his approach, no matter how great that person or that like acharyas, they are acharyas, no doubt, but they come to establish a particular school of thought, like Kapila Muni, Sankhya, then the Tantras also has some origin. So they are a limited view, whereas Gita is a synthetic view. Sri Krishna tries to combine whatever was being accepted at that time and tries to make sense. So he uses Kshetrajna, he uses Purusha Prakriti, but he doesn't use Shakti so much because Tantras came much later after Mahabharata. Though he uses the word Prakriti, which is nothing but Shakti. So Krishna you cannot classify as, otherwise he would not be Krishna. So when any prophet or any person, if he speaks, that is why when describing Sri Ramakrishna and his philosophy, somebody said Sri Ramakrishna said this or Sri Ramakrishna said this. Swami Vivekananda got angry on him. He said, if you limit Sri Ramakrishna, then you are he cannot be one-sided. That is one sign. If you are one-sided, you are not a universal being, and Uh, that is the role Sri Krishna had to play to unite all the conflicting sects. Again, the need was there when, apart from the quarrels within Hinduism, the sectarian approach that I believe in this, I believe in that. Who cares for your belief? Nobody bothers. If you tell somebody that I eat only this, you are religious only if you eat this, and if you don't eat this, nobody cares. He will go on eating what he wants. So there is no variation will always be there. But Sri Krishna, though he accepted everything, he accepted Sankhya, accepted Jnana, accepted Bhakti, he made a wonderful synthesis, and they always speak of universal values. So you cannot classify him as supporting Vedanta or Sankhya. Everything you will find in the Gita, just as you find in the Gospel.
There's a question. Thakur says in Kali Yuga, man depends on food.
Food.
When and how has man not depended on food?
Oh, this question, you should see the context in which Sri Ramakrishna said. Don't take the words literally. In Bengali, I know. The question is, in Kali Yuga, Sri Ramakrishna has said in the Gospel, life depends upon food. Actually, that's not a proper translation. He says, Kali Yuge Annagata Prana. If you should read it in the original Bengali, Annagata Prana means that which is the jiva is totally gross in the sense that his physical state determines his mental state. Annagrata prana means that. So the capacity to bear hunger, to bear pain, everything has decreased. Life has been made so comfortable. You see the Stone Age, they had Swamiji himself says, in the Stone Age, if somebody got a sword wound, he would not even go to a doctor. If we have a small prick, we rush to take so many antibiotics and this and that. So physically, over a period of time, maybe because of too much of luxury and too much of, we have been increasingly dependent on food. That means on the physical uh, ability of a person to live healthy physically. That is why even yoga has been degraded to asanas, because it deals with the body. If you say yoga will make you meditate, 99% will not come to yoga. They will come to yoga only if their body becomes beautiful, fit, and they can enhance its value, at least for some years, and make it look young and beautiful. Then yoga is useful, pranayama is beautiful, everything is fine. After that, they don't need yoga. So, similarly, that is why he says annagata prana means, you see, his whole attention, prana means not just the prana, the life force, he means whole attention, whole focus is on physical things, the wealth. So Annagata Prana means not just food. Even in those days, people were dependent on food. So you have to see the context in which he said. There were yugas, for example, he says, the rishis, they used to eat very less. If you take the literal meaning also, but they lived on very little. So civilization, as Swamiji says, is not on how much you want to make you happy, but how much less you can have and still be happy. So that is that simple living and high thinking was there in ancient age. Now there are so many, it has become so consumeristic, so many artificial needs have been created that you think without this we cannot live. There was even 25 years ago when we were in the training center, there was no fan. Fan was something which was considered to be a luxury 30 years ago. Now, if you tell the brahmacharis who come that there will be no fan, they say in the Calcutta heat we can't live. They will run away home because they have been used to fans, ACs in their homes. So the level of luxury or the level of so-called material progress changes, and Sri Ramakrishna knew it. Though he lived in a very rural setting, he knew, anticipated what is going to happen. How much of already Calcutta was full of new things. They were all known as miracles. Light was there, gas lights were there, so many new things which were considered to be miracles for the older people. So, in that sense, he said Annagata Prana because man will have to take care what he eats. That is one thing, but not just what he eats by the mouth, it means many other things. What he.
For Aarti, but there's one question.
Mm.
It says um, about the Gita. Why does the Gita have a synthetic view?
That,
The same person is asking what does insentiate mean?
insentient means jada.
No,
Now I don't know. I'll tell you. Not insensate, it is insentient. Sentience means consciousness. Insentient means like a stone. Apparently, according to Western science, it is stone doesn't have consciousness. But according to Prakriti, according to Sankhya, even a stone has consciousness. There's a great philosopher, Persian philosopher known as Jalaluddin Rumi. He was the one who, of course, he was exposed to Indian Hindu thought, though he was a Muslim. But he said this wonderful sentence. I don't know, I can't quote you the exact verse, but he says, this whole universe is full of sentience. Sentience means conscious things. See, we make the distinction in science between living and non-living. That which moves, that which reproduces, there's so many rules. But and all the stones and the minerals and everything is in plants are living, and you have the inanimate and animate world. Sentient means the animate world, and insentient means the inanimate jada. Whereas in as I said in Vedanta, that distinction is not made, but for us to understand, Prakriti is known as insentient because whatever we see in Prakriti which changes has a conscious principle, just as the fire in Sri Ramakrishna's example makes the pot hot and the potatoes jump about, the rice is cooked by the fire which is not part of the pot. It is separate. So also this consciousness, when it appears to be full of life, it is known as sentient, and what is not is insentient. So Prakriti is totally insentient. And that includes animals, everything is insentient. It is the Purusha that gives it. That's why this Jalaluddin Rumi, I'll close with this. He said, consciousness is very active in human beings. It is quivering, it's little inactive in the plants, and it is stationary, but it is still there in the stone. So that's a beautiful verse. He says, even in the stone it is there, but because it is stationary, you can't see it. Stone also is conscious in a way. That is the Western Vedanta concept. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.